the last time I saw you, you said you had some kind of anybody can apply, anybody can just join your sales as long as they can sell. Yeah, man. He was like, if you sell a ATM, then I'll give you the job. And I kind of started regaining some faith in myself. I went back into hustler mode, and I sold 2 coin flip ATMs, aka Bitcoin cryptocurrency ATMs, where you insert cash and then you get crypto. I went to the office, and him and Chris Dayrit, the CMO, were like, well, man, I don't even think I really need to interview you because you sold 2 ATMs. So I think you got the job. And I was like, wow. I thought I was working for a really innovative company and but I was yet to accept that I had bipolar.
Dope.
Boom.
We're live. Round two.
Rolling.
Round two. So
Round 2.
We already did this once. And luckily for Matt, he came in as soon as we got new equipment. So I knew this was going to happen. I didn't know what the severity would be, but we lost a few episodes. So it's all good.
No.
I told the guests that the ones that we lost, they could, they're welcome to come back. I don't charge anything to get on, so just cost them their time and maybe their gas money because I make them come in person. But
well, for me, because I don't have a car, so it's pretty out the way to come here. But I have enough respect for you and the show and everything you got going on. So I'm like, man, if we got to redo it, we'll redo it.
Yeah, dude, I was like, I think there was like 1 or 2 others where we're going to have to redo. And the one dude lives in PA. And then I know there might have been another one where we lost the audio. So I mean,
what happened to a couple episodes?
Yeah, so 2 or 3. Yeah, so we weren't the only one. So we had to break the news to everybody. The equipment's worth it though. So like now everything's recorded into one device, the audio, and then we're able to switch and everything. So it's like it minimizes the editing. So as we scale the podcast, we'll be able to eventually, basically just be like Rogan. We'll be able to pump out 3-4 episodes a week, and it not be a lot of strain on Aiden. Because he's probably not getting paid whatever Jamie gets paid. So I don't know what Rogan's editor or podcast dude gets paid, but it's probably not what Aiden gets paid.
I mean, I've been there on the other end of the content side. A lot of my background is in media. I never really wanted to be a media person, but I used it as different like tools and to open doors. And there's so much logistics that goes into content, especially as you want to like upscale the quality of the content. It goes from really simple to really complicated really fast. So I understand what Aiden's got going on. Yeah,
I wish everything was wireless and just real simple and easy, but it is what it is. I'm excited. I love the process. I love to look back and look where we started, and I can't wait to have all this footage. And 10 years from now, I'll be like, Jesus Christ, I can't believe we had all that horrible footage and we just sounded so scripted and weird. So
hell yeah, man! It's a great thing to document your process and to.
Yes.
Are there any? Well, let me throw a question at you. Are there any other ways that you like to document what you do, and how do you like make sure that you're keeping track of all of that?
Social media, like everybody else.
That's true.
I like how social media incorporates memories. I'll use Facebook memories a lot. Like I'll share with my team and my company, because I've posted pictures on Facebook and, Instagram and, Snapchat, whatever it might be, just all the different social media platforms. And I'm able to kind of like look back and then utilize and leverage those for my own reminiscence, but also for inspiration to, the company and to the business and, showing individuals where it's like 4 years ago, I was selling insurance to now I own an insurance company. So it's like
right.
Somebody can have that same exact opportunity if they're willing to do the same work and have the same mindset.
I mean, to humble myself, most people wouldn't have the attention or interest to do this. But if anybody, let's say tomorrow I became more of like a celebrity figure, if someone were to go through my Instagram and, view each post and look at like who is tagged in it and what's in the post and stuff like that, you could see a really clear like journey of my life.
Yeah.
And I've done that on purpose because I kind of like the art of figuring out how to tell the story of your life through media.
Portraying your life through media.
Yeah.
It's dope. Media is invaluable. You know what I mean? I hope it never gets completely obliterated. I don't like, just how some things are shadow banned and people aren't able to voice their opinions. I feel like even though things are extremely hateful and even being on the opposite end of that, being mixed, You know what I mean? It's like there's definitely some things where it's like, you know, I'm not going to want to be on the other side of racism. But at the same time, I believe people deserve to voice it's freedom of speech. You know what I mean? You want to say it, say it.
I think if someone says something really bad, that they should be able to say it so that people can have a dialogue around it. Like, if you're going to say something hateful, at least don't suppress it, because then it becomes this insidious, like unspoken, unvoiced thing that, you know, expresses itself in other ways. You know, if they can't say something on social media, they're going to still act some way in the world. So as long as people could have a dialogue about it, I think.
And I've never defined myself by people's opinions.
Yeah.
At least they're negative ones. Maybe the positive ones, like, oh yeah, you're right. You know what I mean?
You're right. I am a boss.
Yeah. But all right, dope. So let's jump into the story again. So where were you born and raised? Let's start there.
Sure. So I was
Isn't
born.
that pillow so annoying?
Why? Because it has
The
these little
feathers
things come out
they
of it.
poke you.
It's a little.
So it starts
pokey,
with poking, and then you pull it out, and it's a feather, and it's soft.
It's interesting.
Like if you rub against like the tips, they're like hard. They like poke.
Yeah. It was a little bit uncomfortable, but it's also
I'm like,
soft. It's
and then they get your attention. You're like, what the fuck? Yeah, like what kind of pillow is this? So you're born and raised?
So I was born and raised in Hyde Park, which is on the south side of Chicago. It's actually where Vic Mensa's from. And
Who's Vic Mensa?
Chicago-based rapper.
Okay.
So he's close with people like Chance. And all the Chicago
I saw on
people.
somebody's story where you had a gentleman on. What was his name again? Aiden that edited the James Webb. Yeah. So I saw on his story, it looked like he went to like some metal concert down in the city. I would imagine down in Chicago. I don't know if you checked out his Instagram story, but Action Bronson was there too. Isn't he a rapper?
Yeah. And it's Action Bronson is. I love people who do completely separate career things and figure out a way to blend them. So Action Bronson had this like documentary series where he would be on tour, but it was really about food, as if he was like Anthony Bourdain, but then he would mix in the performances into the episodes. I thought that was pretty cool.
Creative.
Yeah, I thought that was creative. Yeah.
Dope. So you grew up in Hyde Park. That's where Vic Mensa's from. Yeah,
I grew up in Hyde Park. My mom and to this day, my mom grew up, and to this day, my grandma still lives in South Shore, which is where Kanye and G Herbo and various other people are from, which is just a few like miles.
What nationality was your mom?
My mom is white, mostly white. She's 1/4 Indian.
Which white?
So
there's so many whites.
A lot of Irish and some German and stuff like that. And then my grandmother, who she still lives there, and my mom doesn't like talking about that because they don't really have like the best relationship, which is its whole other story. And my mom even hearing, if you're watching this right now, I'm so sorry I mentioned that. I'm not going to mention that anymore.
Wait, what are we not mentioning about your mom?
My mom's relationship with her mom is like really
rocky.
Yeah.
That's how my mom is with hers.
Anyway, what was the question? Oh, my mom's ethnicity. Like Irish, I think some Polish. My dad grew up in a small town called Granby in Massachusetts, and it's just a super small, quiet town. It's kind of close to Boston. I visited there once with him. There's not much going on out there. And then he met my mom here in Chicago when he went to school at the University of Chicago.
Dope. And then where's he from? Ethnicity?
My dad is also a little Irish. He's a lot more Polish, Lithuanian, and
a little bit of everything.
Stuff. Yeah, I'm like a European with a slight spice of Indian.
Yeah. Okay.
Slight sprinkle is a better.
Yeah. Okay. I feel it.
1/8. So I don't go telling people I'm Indian, but I often, when people ask about my ethnicity, mention the Indian in it as like a fun fact because my great grandfather immigrated from southern India, so super dark.
Oh, you're talking about actual India.
Yeah,
not
India,
Native American.
Not Native American. Yeah,
okay.
India.
I was like, I think we're all Native American.
India. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Kerala is where my great grandfather came from.
Dope, bro. That's dope. Unique. So, who were you closest with growing up? I think you said your dad or your mom.
No, I was definitely like a mama's boy growing up, but I was very close with both my parents. How do I explain? So, I've always been really close with my parents, but I've always felt this very like very fiery independence and need to distance myself from them in order to grow and evolve and grow up in a way that I felt like was the best fit for myself. So they were always there and gave me like the proper love and support, which I really appreciate. But in a lot of ways, I also saw them, not necessarily like their jobs and not necessarily be positive all the time. And a lot of different things that I noticed that I was like, people people talk about their parents being the bestest of role models. And so there's a few aspects of what my parents have shown me, like knowing how to, appreciate and love your child and let them be who they are. But then there's other aspects that I feel like I noticed, and I didn't want that to rub off on me as much. So
yeah,
it's complicated. I'm actually thinking about it a lot over the past few days, my relationship with my parents, and like meditating on it in my head in a way. So
kind of processing like the things you want to do, the things you like, the things you don't like, things you want to like take into your life. So from growing up and transitioning into that high school phase, when you start to kind of find yourself, what was that like?
That was interesting because I grew up in Hyde Park up until I was about 14. And when I went to high school, coincidentally at the same time, we moved from Hyde Park up to North Park, which is on the other side of the city, basically. And but during that phase of like teenage years, I explored the whole of Chicago because I throughout my life up to that point.
Was it safe to do that?
It depends on who you ask.
Yeah.
Some people would say that the way that I explored Chicago at the end of the day wasn't that dangerous because I didn't really put myself into situations that were that crazy, depending on who you talk to. But other people who may not have the kind of background of really exploring Chicago like that would say that I definitely they put myself at risk in various ways that I didn't need to, which I kind of disagree with because anyway, I feel like I could go on about that for a long time. But the point is I explored a lot of Chicago throughout my whole life. I literally have met people from, being born to teenage years from everywhere in the city. And I've been to all kinds of corners of the city. There are various places that I never stepped into because there's just like not really any reason I would have gone there necessarily.
I'm on a podcast.
Yo.
Oh, real quick, Tristan. Do you know if when an essay gets promoted, do they have a grace period in regards to how long?
30 days.
Before they have a 30-day grace
Every
period?
position typically has a 30-day grace period.
Tristan's gotta make the gears continue to run. So when they need questions answered, I understand. I've been there.
I thought it'd be cool to like
I've been there
to intercept it.
Grow a beard out.
Oh, I'm not growing this out. I just wanted to grow it out just enough to shave it for my birthday so my face looks good shaved.
Wait, so if someone got promoted to essay,
It's real-time business, guys. Real-time business going down. The company's got to run.
2 weeks ago.
Yeah, so he won't need a code. He won't need a code this month or the fall. So if he got promoted, whenever his contract goes into effect, the following month is his grace period. So technically, he wouldn't need the code until November.
He'll still get a leadership term
Yes.
in October, even if you don't get a code.
Yes.
All right, thank you, love you, brother.
Love. Peace. I thought it would be cool. He's a talker, though. I should have known that. I was like, oh, that'll be cool.
No
We
worries.
could answer something, and it'd be kind of cool and interesting. But he's a talker. I should have known that.
And if I could say one little thing about Chicago, like historically, Chicago is extremely segregated. So basically, the north side is like white and
I
the
can
south
feel
side
that.
is black.
Yeah, I can feel that.
You can feel it. There's a real racial tension. I actually have been listening to the audiobook, the memoir of Richard Williams, the father of Serena and Venus Williams.
I think I saw you put that on your story.
And you know what's crazy? This guy is a remarkable guy. Literally before they were born, he wrote a 70-page manual, predicted and created the goal of having 2 daughters who would be the champions of tennis in the world. And it happened. Like what are the chances of that? Like he didn't even know if he'd have daughters.
Yeah.
And that his whole life story is really crazy. But he grew up in Shreveport, Louisiana, where like he literally picked cotton. And at one point he came to Chicago thinking that it would be better. And he said the kind of treatment and tension he felt in Chicago was worse than Louisiana, which is crazy.
The further north you go, the delivery's more direct. I grew up in Arkansas, so even if you experience racism, it's a Southern hospitality racism. You know what I mean? Where north there is no hospitality. You know what I mean? With it, you know what I mean? It might be sandwiched.
It's a more subtle, kind of sinister form.
Yeah,
of
it's
it.
very direct. You know what I mean? Like so, going from Arkansas to the yes ma'am, no ma'am, yes sir, no sir, to into Pennsylvania, where I spent the other half of my childhood, where it was very direct. You know what I mean? That, and you learn to appreciate both, because they show you and formulate and develop and mold you into, you know, a different type of individual where you can adapt to different environments. I think the most valuable person I feel like is a chameleon, somebody that can adapt to every environment. Because you got to be able to sell. You know what I mean? You got to sell yourself, sell your ideas. You know,
that's
regardless.
very much how I feel. I feel like I'm the pinnacle of chameleon. I'm chameleon on steroids. But a lot of people look at that, or they'll.
Can we edit in a picture of a chameleon on steroids? Can we have somebody edit a picture of a chameleon on steroids and just put it in right in this moment?
People who know me, like, you know, my real close friends who I have a lot of, when I say that, they know what I mean, because they've met a lot of my other friends. They understand that my friends are very wide ranging in like background and mentality, and like I have friends on the far left and the far right, and every race and every kind of industry and discipline. And, and I can relate to all of them in some shape or form. I don't have to agree with everything that they believe in to be their friend. I think that's ridiculous.
Whichever one you're with, just tell them what they want to hear.
I don't know about that. But where I was going with this initial thought of Chicago being extremely segregated is that there are a few pockets of Chicago that are actually extremely integrated, one of them being Hyde Park. So when I grew up as a child, I was like 4 years old, surrounded by every kind of race and ethnicity. And I think that did something to my brain psychologically and developmentally that was really profound and healthy for me, because it helped me be a chameleon in a more genuine and authentic and unforced way as I got older, because of all that early exposure to all these people. And especially because the University of Chicago is there, not only was it very ethnically American diverse, but there was often people from other countries whose families were there involved in the school in some way. So it was very internationally diverse as well. And I grew up with people who were there from Korea or Japan for a few years and became friends with them while they were there, and all type of stuff like that. So I think Hyde Park is maybe my favorite neighborhood in Chicago. This is not really good for nightlife and stuff like that, but for like cafes.
Where do you live, Aiden? Lincoln Park. How close is that to Hyde Park?
Kind of far.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
No,
it's kind of far. It's not that
is
far.
Is Lincoln Park safe at night?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hyde Park is also pretty safe at night. Hyde Park, I like to say, is a hood sandwich, because anywhere north, south, or anywhere north, west, or south is the hood.
Okay.
And but Hyde Park is this, and once in a while shit will go down in Hyde Park, but for the most part, Hyde Park is like, you know,
it sounds
I'm
like,
not from the hood. Like, I can never claim I'm from the hood. Like, my background was sweet. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, absolutely.
And when I say sweet, I'm using like a slang terminology.
Yeah, you're using. Like trust me, I'm gonna have to. I know what sweet means. Hell yeah, you talking to the choir. So I just saw you went on an international trip. So where all did you go? And what was that for?
Yeah, I was just in Turkey, and I went with my Turkish friend who was born in Antalya. He looks like and acts like he's a typical white American guy, but he's a full-blown Turkish dude. And he grew up in a place called Antalya in Turkey. And his grandma and his uncle still live there. So we went to stay with them for a week.
Okay.
And I went with him, and I went with my friend Mirza Bey. Shout out to Mirza Bey. He's a lead developer at Cash Drop, one of the faster growing businesses in Chicago.
I'm trying to get him on I'm trying to get Ruben on my podcast,
yeah, Ruben,
bro.
Ruben, come on, man. I just interviewed Ruben recently for the first episode of my own rebranded podcast.
Yes, dude. Tell him to get on my podcast, please.
But so Mirza and Ali, and there's another guy's name is Gabe Tavis. That's the OG startup crew from high school. So in high school, I worked on all type of wacky ideas with these wacky young people, and a lot of those guys who I just went to Turkey with. Gabe Tavis, who didn't go but wanted to go, has been in the midst of building his brand called Symmetry Wood.
Okay.
This guy is literally taking bacteria, goo, cellulose, and he's making it into artificial wood so that you don't have to cut down trees.
That's so dope.
You know, like Beyond Meat? It's like Beyond Meat, but the wood version.
Yeah, Beyond Wood. I can make such a horrible joke right now.
Shout out to Gabe. That's my homie from the day one.
Listen, stand-up comedians, please make a Beyond Wood bit. We be having so many. I'm gonna be a stand-up comedian, dude. Like, how did my mind
I want to be a stand-up comedian too.
Right? We got to go to an open mic or something. And James Webb was telling us we got to just go and do an open mic. I was watching. I had Dan Cass on my podcast. Shout out to Aiden. He gets these comedians to come on. And they had this roast session on his IG, and some old dude is on there, and then there's this younger dude, and this old dude says this wordy joke. It's a wordy joke, and this fucking dude looks at him and he's like, "That's fucking wordy," in front of the whole crowd, and everybody starts breaking out laughing. I'm like, that wasn't even that funny. And he looks at the dude, and the dude's wearing like a horrible outfit. And he's wearing like this black plaid shirt. You know, the dude looks like he's 50 years old, and he's wearing like olive green khaki pants, and he's like, "Green pants, black shirt, Old Navy," and like drops the mic, and I'm like, what the fuck? Everybody starts laughing, and I'm like, you can tell it's like a stand-up comedian like circle in there. Like it's like, and so like they just have this vibe with these raunchy jokes. I'm like, that is so hilarious, not hilarious, but hilarious. And the fact that everybody just crack jokes like that, it's so cool. I recommend getting some comedians in your circle.
Oh, yeah. That's interesting because funny enough, I know people who do some comedy skits and stuff, but I don't know any straight up comedians who I would love to meet because I love watching stand-up comedy.
So good.
So good. It's one of my favorite pastimes.
Yeah.
Because you just laugh. You just laugh.
Yeah.
I would say my two favorite stand-up comedians, and I kind of put them at like probably like an equal level is Dave Chappelle and Trevor Noah. Trevor Noah is a funny fucking guy. That guy is and so is Dave Chappelle.
Yeah.
I gotta give it to both of them. I've watched almost every single, as far as I'm concerned, I've watched every Trevor Noah and Dave Chappelle special that exists because I've tried to find as many as I could watch.
Yeah.
They're just, man, funny stuff.
Dope.
Yeah.
So what was the dopest part of Turkey's culture?
Turkey is really interesting. So for one, it's like a 24-hour petting zoo. There are cats and dogs everywhere, stray cats and dogs everywhere, but they're all docile and they're all integrated into the society so that no one bats an eye at this at all. And they seem to generally be kind of clean, and they're not really angry, and they're not going to attack you. So there were many drunk nights I was walking
I love
back.
how you're describing them as like they're like a subhuman species.
They were really, because I'll give you an example. I was sitting in a public ass cafe in a really populated area, and this big dog just walks into the cafe, boom, lays his body on the ground, starts sleeping, and no one gives a fuck. They just let the dog like sleep in the middle of the cafe, and then whenever he's ready to walk out, he'll walk out. And shop owners will put out like food and water for the random stray cats everywhere in random corners, anywhere you go. So they kind of like just live with these animals like they're their homies. And,
Jesus Christ. That's hilarious. So was that your favorite piece?
I don't know if it was my favorite piece. What was my favorite part about Turkey? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I've still been thinking about that. People have been asking me. The culture is interesting. You know, luckily, it's not like Chicago where people are fucking shooting each other left and right and dying that way, but there's a lot of street fights.
Yeah.
More than I've ever seen. Like, more than I've ever seen when I would go out on a typical night.
Are they bilingual or is it just Turkish?
Just Turkish. That was one thing. There are a lot of countries in the world. People generally speak English.
I'm gonna look up Turkish
Turkey,
translator to see
no.
what some of this shit sounds like.
I'll tell you, I spoke no Turkish going into Turkey, and
Yeah,
thank
you definitely have to know a little
is a
bit.
difficult word in Turkish. Saying thank you in Turkish is teşekkür ederim. And it took
That
me
sounded really fucking good.
And it took me like a few days to finally remember that and get that right. I remember they have like at the currency exchange booths in the airport, they have like attractive girls there so they can kind of like sell you.
Let's see.
Teşekkürler.
Teşekkürler. That's like the short version, the informal one.
Teşekkürler.
And there's teşekkür ederim, and there's çok teşekkür ederim, which is like thank you very much. And Turkish is not necessarily was not an easy language for me to pick up. I speak Japanese. That's the only other language
Like
I speak.
fluently. Oh yeah, I remember you did school in Japan, right? On one of the islands.
On on an island called Miyakojima. And
Okay,
it's like-
yeah.
And,
Did that get you like into anime? Or is like that's like all they do, right?
No, I was pretty into anime before I went to Japan, but then for whatever reason, I got really into Japanese culture as a young kid, as like an early teenager.
Dragon
Because-
Ball Z.
Yeah, there's something about
Everybody liked
anime.
Dragon
There's
Ball
just
Z.
this like fighting spirit about anime that I got
Yeah.
really into as a kid. Just like the effervescence of like you are gonna constantly improve and become the best and beat each progressively more difficult enemy and challenge. And
Yeah,
there's just
Dragon Ball
something
Z.
about that narrative.
Is that every anime?
That's almost every anime.
Oh, okay.
yeah.
I just thought like I've only watched Dragon Ball Z, so I'm like
It's like every
I was like
anime.
he's describing Dragon Ball Z. He was like the next level of Super Saiyan. It's like
Yeah,
all
yeah,
right, Dragon Ball Z.
exactly.
Did you get into Dragon Ball Z, Aiden?
Yeah, I saw most of it.
All right, cool. Did you watch the new movie, the Dragon Ball Z movie?
I haven't watched anime in a long time, but I would binge watch that stuff as like when I was like 10,
Yeah.
11, 12, or just sit in the computer room and watch as many episodes as I could of Dragon Ball, Naruto, and Full
I
Metal
would have watched that
Alchemist
shit
and-
if I knew all the street fights in Turkey. That shit would have had you ready. You know what I mean? You would have been ready to go.
Man, no, I'd walk in random alleys and some guy would be chasing a dude. They'll pick up random stuff off the street and start beating each other. And at one point, we're walking around the public area and this guy's just like, like kicking this dude. He's bleeding from his face. I'm like, oh shit. I'm like, Ali, what is he saying? He's like, why did you look at my wife that way? That's what he's saying. I was like, damn. What the fuck?
So, what's their religion in Turkey?
It's Islam.
Is okay. So I could see now. Do they have to wear the hijab? Am I saying that right?
Yeah, you're saying that right. Well,
That's the first time I probably said it right.
Compared to a lot of other Muslim countries or countries in the Middle East, Turkey has like one of the lower percentages of like hijab wearing. Like there's a lot more girls in Turkey that don't wear hijab, but it's still like without a doubt a super, super Muslim country. For example, in almost all Muslim countries and in Turkey, every morning, you know, at the first, in Islam, you pray 5 times
Yes.
a day. And at the first prayer of the morning, which is sometime between like 5:30 and 6, if I'm not mistaken, based on my memory.
Can they ever sleep in?
Here, I'll tell you, it's like a neighborhood alarm clock. The local mosque every day. Allah! I boom, wake up. I'm like,
We may have to
whoa!
edit that out.
No.
I'm kidding.
Every Muslim person, no Muslim person should be rightfully offended by that because they all know what I'm talking about. They all.
The highlight that we make from this, I just want it to be 10 seconds, and I want it to be him doing that. And then I want it stripped down to an MP3, and I want it to be my ringtone. It's gonna be my ringtone, my alarm. I'm gonna make it a repeat. It's gonna be a 10-hour loop on YouTube.
Well, I hope I like to say some stuff that's like, I don't know, and I really hope in the future as my level of fame goes up that people don't take out the craziest stuff I say and
They
just
are.
make me look so
Look at Joe
dumb.
Rogan. They have a
I
whole
know.
compilation of him just saying the N-word.
But you know, salam alaikum, all my Muslim brothers and sisters. If you're listening to this, you know what I'm talking about. Any Muslim country, you wake up and they have, you know, the alarm clock at the mosque.
The Allah alarm clock.
It is true, and I, as someone who wants to wake up earlier in the morning but doesn't necessarily always do that, it was kind of nice. It was like I have no choice but to have this alarm clock. I can't ever hit snooze. I can't ever
Yes.
say
You
no
can't
to
snooze
it.
You can't snooze Allah.
You can't, and so it was quite interesting. Yeah. What else? What else do you want to talk about?
Shit. So, is that your favorite trip?
No. Japan was definitely my favorite trip just because of like the enthusiasm of Japanese people.
Yeah.
Japanese people, if you become their friend, and even if you're not their friend, they're willing to befriend you very quickly. Turkish people, like, once they know you, as soon as you're their friend, they like bring you in, and generally, in general, are extremely hospitable people. But in Japan, it's just like, I don't know how to explain it. I get along with Japanese people really well, and just like have a lot of spontaneous kind of like fun interactions. And I am a big fan of Japanese food, so I was just like engulfing myself in sushi while I was there.
Was there any great food in Turkey?
Turkish people, please don't get offended by this, Turkish people. I was low-key slightly disappointed by the food that I ate in Turkey. I actually love Turkish food. It's not bad, but I had grand expectations for eating like the most delicious kebab that I would ever eat in my life. And by the time I left Turkey, pretty much everyone on the trip, with exception my Turkish friends, the rest of the crew was also feeling the same sentiment. They were a little bit disappointed by the food we had in Turkey, but I don't think we really took the time to like explore good restaurants either.
Is there baklava in Turkey?
Yeah, that's exactly where Turkey's from.
Okay.
Turkish food isn't bad. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying I had really high expectations for it, and I just didn't go to enough of good restaurants.
Yeah. What was your favorite food in Japan?
Sushi by far. I love sushi.
Was it like really different than American sushi?
It's just generally a lot more fresh. It's just generally and like one cool aspect about Japan is their convenience store food is like pretty good. Like if you're hungry and you want to get some food really quick and you're on the run and you don't want to think about it too much, here the equivalent of that experience would be like a McDonald's, which, no offense to McDonald's, that shit is really bad for your body. But in Japan, you could just go to the corner store, get like a fish cake, some rice stuff. Was
there McDonald's in Turkey?
There was.
What did they serve there?
McDonald's and Burger King in Turkey are more like a luxury food. Because, I can't believe I left this out. The best part about Turkey is how cheap everything is.
Yes.
Everything is ridiculously cheap. You go to a Turkey with USD, with American dollars, and you feel like a rich man.
Yeah.
Like I was in Turkey and the clothes were way cheaper. The food, I was buying water bottles for like less than 10 cents.
Jesus.
And I was eating like big fill you up sandwiches for like less than $4.
Wow.
And so
you ain't doing that in Chicago.
Oh, they're not doing that in Chicago. I just went and got a cheesesteak today and it was like $15. I was like, damn. But when I got back to Chicago and I had to pay $7 for a Subway, I was like, man, this shit is fucked up. Because in Turkey, the food was so cheap. It was so cheap. And everything there was anything you could possibly think of, with the exception of like imported, like a foreign stuff. Like alcohol was around the same price because it was even if it was Turkish alcohol, because they want to match the price of like Coronas and stuff like that.
Yeah. So let's go back into Light Pong.
Yes.
Light Pong. Let's talk on Light Pong now. So kind of walk us through whatever you want to walk us through for Light Pong.
Sure. So about a year and a half ago, after going through a whole debacle of year of my life that I faced the most adversity in my life, which we could talk about.
Yes.
After coming out of that, I joined, shout out to Akib Usman, founder of Light Pong, who I worked with before and then reconnected with after a few years. And we started working with this other, I kind of joined it mid while it was going on, but it was still very early, and I'm very much on the founding team.
Yeah,
and I'm a co-owner. I have equity and everything. And so we're building the world's first quote unquote one-dimensional game console.
Yeah.
Maybe we can put up a quick video here because it's really hard to describe verbally, but it's this tube of LED light that plays games on the beam of light using 2 controllers and 2 buttons each on each controller. And what we're trying to do is take the experience of gaming, of electronic gaming, and the experience of play and make it more accessible to people who normally wouldn't have considered themselves gamers. Because these games are so simple and so intuitive, whether you're 6 years old or 60 years old, or whether you've ever played a video game before, you can just jump into this thing and instantly get into it. So kind of like how you see a giant Jenga or some analog board game that people like, a chess or something, but even chess and even Jenga, you might not feel like you have the Jenga skills, or you might not feel like you know how to play chess. But Light Pong has an array of simple games that you can, test. Am I good at this? And they're so simple, you might just click, it might click and you might be the next champion. So it launches in early 2023. We were supposed to launch in October. We had to announce a delay. But I'm really excited for it because I think games is a really easy way to get people involved together. And with anything in life, no matter what it is, sports is a great example of this. When people are involved in something together, even if it has no technical meaning, like even if you're just kicking a ball, as long as the people are really intensely involved, it creates this magical experience. And so if we can do that more with Light Pong because of how intuitive and simple and easy these games are, but that also have an element of mastery to it where you can become the fastest button masher in the world, which is one of our games. All it is who can press their button faster, called Beam War. It's kind of like Harry Potter or Kamehameha, or just two forces pushing against each other in the tube, and whoever can press their button faster, you push your light against the other one and then you win. And so it's
oh, it's a great description. It's a great description. I just know Aiden's back there laughing, so that's all I said.
That's my favorite game. It's the one drunk people get the most
I saw them
into.
play. I went to Ruben had his
the cash drop party.
they had the cash out party where they did like all the founders did their pitch, and how do you say his name? Akib. So he got. I gave my ticket, my vote, my $1 to him. So I saw it. It looked dope. You know what I mean? I think him and the Claude. I think they played, and it looked dope.
Yeah, I'm excited, and the coolest part about Light Pong to me is that it's an open platform.
Yeah.
So anybody in the world, if they know how to code in Python, can make new games for Light Pong, publish them to a public marketplace that you can download from your phone, and then you can constantly upload new games to your Light Pong.
Wow.
So it technically, theoretically, we'll see how far things can go based on people's creativity, but you could theoretically make unlimited games on Light Pong. Obviously,
how many games
can you do? So far, our Discord community has come up with 50 plus documented ideas. So from
50 different ways for like the light to do something
make
different?
different games. Yeah.
Okay.
And there's train game and memory pattern and all green, red light, green light, where it goes green and then you and then it's red. But if you when it turns red, then you go back to the start.
Okay.
So you have to risk it basically.
Yeah.
There's all these different ideas people have come up with.
Yeah, that's dope.
And it's interesting. So we'll see. And it could also be like a music visualizer. You could put the thing on a wall and have it go respond to the music.
Yeah.
And with its own
It's able to do
lights.
that?
Yeah, it's able to do anything you want to program it to do technically. So obviously the core focus is games.
Does the consumer program it? Like how would somebody of my intelligence program something to...
Well, you'd kind of have to learn how to code a little bit.
What the fuck? I mean, who knows how to...
So going off that idea, a lot of teachers have reached out to us saying, wow, I could use this for introductory computer science courses because unlike just a screen with text, when you code on the Light Pong, you can see the lights right in front of you go.
Yeah.
So they think it would be a really engaging way to teach code, which I'm really excited about because there's this whole, wave and trend of computer science being more and more necessary. So if we can integrate ourselves into that, I think it's even more of like a double whammy with where we're going.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Dope. So what's been your favorite part of pretty much kind of constructing everything and just the process of Light Pong?
Well, I have a hand in everything, almost everything non-engineering. So I do a lot of marketing, community, branding, stuff like that. And so putting a lot of thought and effort into building the community around Light Pong, who are going to be the future game developers, who are going to be the future esports kings of Light and queens of Light Pong, who are going to be the people who influencers who make content using it. That's been really, really interesting for me to think about and reach out to all those people and kind of build hype around that. So by the time we launch, we have this whole pool of influencers and game developers and content creators and who are ready to jump into the thing and make cool shit happen.
Yeah. Dope. So let's go back to prior to you getting into Light Pong, the hardest adversity you had to overcome and transitioning into Light Pong.
Yeah. Well, funny enough, shout out to anyone who has struggled with manic depressive illness, aka known as bipolar, for most people with bipolar, it doesn't develop till their early 20s.
Yeah.
And so technically up until I was 19, I didn't have it. Technically. And then out of nowhere, suddenly I basically lose my mind, just like out of the blue,
But
almost like a car crash.
There were some triggers.
There were some triggers, but
Like, do you think it would have happened if you didn't have like any drugs in your system?
if I didn't do all the psychedelics and shit I was doing, and if I wasn't like, there's various factors, but I can't say for certain, because, you know, a lot of people around me were also doing those same kind of drugs. And as far as I was concerned, you know, nothing happened to them, so nothing was going to happen to me. And kind of like a car crash, just driving, you're just completely like, everything's smooth, everything's easy. And then before I knew it, you know, I had gone into this whole narrative that, what happens with bipolar is your mania gets escalated and escalated and escalated until it can turn into a psychotic outbreak.
Yeah.
So I started acting hyper and unusual over the course of. People think bipolar means you go from hot to cold really quickly, like, oh, they're angry 1 second, then happy the next. What it works like more like when you're not on meds and you're just suffering bipolar, like what's his name, Van Gogh did in the past with no medication. You go through these long, like 6-month cycles of extreme depression and extreme, like super it's like your brain is on fire, super high levels of energy. You don't feel like sleeping, you don't feel like eating, you feel like you're in like you have a God complex. I thought I was the Buddha reincarnated. And then I went to a restaurant with my friends, and I thought people were after me and they wanted to, you know, like take advantage of my enlightenment. So when I got home, I thought someone was waiting outside my house who was like ready to, you know, get my ass. And I thought my parents were kidnapped. And so I went to, I know it's funny in hindsight.
Yeah.
You can laugh.
Yeah, I apologize.
You can laugh. It's fine. And it gets funnier, bro. Listen, so I sprinted to the McDonald's with all my might. I called 911. For some reason, it doesn't go through, or maybe I just didn't give it time to go through. I thought they blocked my signal. So you can laugh too, Aiden. So I got to the McDonald's, boom, burst in there. I said, someone's trying to kill me. And the McDonald's manager was like, sit the fuck down, bro. We'll figure this out. And I was like, no. And I was just like freaking out. So the next dude that walked through the door, I just couldn't risk it. I was literally like, as much as it was in my head, I was having a real experience as if I was certain that my life was in danger, which is really odd. And so I was like, I couldn't take the chance because I thought this next guy that walked in the McDonald's was part of who was going to kill me. So I jumped over the counter, like behind into the kitchen. And the manager goes, bro, get the fuck out of my store. And he's big as fuck. So he grabs me, starts dragging me out by the body. And but I don't want to die. So, and when you really don't want to die, some other kind of like human instinct just like unleashes within you.
Yeah.
So as much as this guy was twice my size and way stronger than me, I grabbed onto the door frame with all my might and he couldn't pull me off of it.
Yeah.
And he was like, what the fuck? Okay, this shit is serious. So he was like, all right, bro, just wait inside. And my parents found me in the fetal position under the table. And then the cops showed up, 6 of them. I started explaining to the cops this long, strange story about how like stuff involving race, and I was trying to help people not undo their racism, and the cops are just so confused. And then because when you're going through this like psychotic outbreak, everything feels like a sign and everything makes sense in your head, but it's all just like some weird shit. And so my mom, and this was a painful moment for me that took me a while to shake off, but at this point it's also laughable. She drags me by my pinky outside of the McDonald's while the female employees like heckle me, like they all laugh at me. They're like, and she's just dragging my ass out by the pinky. And so I thought after getting out the hospital and that I didn't know what happened. Like, I couldn't understand why it happened. And it just made so little sense to me that my brain kind of went into shutdown mode / I entered the depressive cycle of bipolar, which can often happen after a hospitalization. And for months, I just slept the days away. I didn't take showers. I didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to go anywhere. I was afraid of myself. I hated my family. I just slept the days away. And then one day I realized, like, man, many months had passed by. You know, I was broke. I had nothing to my name. I wasn't doing anything anymore as much as all the projects that I was involved in prior to this, which was really disheartening for me because from one moment, I feel like I'm on top of the world doing a lot of media stuff. I had almost launched a co-working space. I was working with all these cool music artists and business people, and it all seemed like it was going in a really positive direction. And then suddenly, like, I'm an insane psycho and I have no money and I'm not doing anything and I didn't know what to make of myself. And at one point I was like, fucking man, I gotta just get a fucking job. So, and this was peak COVID at this point. Or no, COVID just hit. And what happened after that? I'm trying to piece back. So you know, like time went on, and I thought, you know, yeah, I gotta get a fucking job. So, I went and worked at this nursing home on Foster and it's near Foster and Kimball. It's called Fairmont. Shout out to anyone that I worked at Fairmont because it's not the greatest job, especially in peak COVID when there was 80 COVID patients in the nursing home and there was several quarantined areas of the nursing home where you just can't go there because you're not allowed to. And the nursing home was such a depressing place. I remember I was elated to be there the first few days because I needed a job. Yeah. So I was just happy to have that job. I didn't care how grimy the job was. I didn't even look at it as that grimy, to be honest, because there were other people that were working there that are also like, you know, good-hearted human beings, and that's their only job. And I couldn't look at it as grimy because I feel like that's disheartening to those. That I feel like that's a disservice to those people. But one of the first few days I was there, I remember walking by this room and these old people look miserable. They don't have really good TV. The food that I was serving them, I was in the kitchen. The food that I was serving them was bad, really bad. And I remember just walking by this room and this old lady starts screaming, "I don't want to live anymore. I don't want." It's like she was ready to die. And I was like, fuck, holy fuck, damn. Anyway, then after that, oh wow, I'm gonna give you the full story. And this is, I don't think I've ever told the full story like this ever publicly, but fuck it, cause I don't give a fuck at this point. So, slowly, but before I had gone crazy the first time, I had on Daniel Pulowski, the CEO of CoinFlip. Are you familiar with CoinFlip?
Yeah, it sounds familiar.
It was the fastest growing company in Chicago back to back, I think, for the past 2 years. And I had interviewed him, and I called him up and I said, "Hey man, I remember you had the last time I saw you, you said you had some kind of anybody can apply, anybody can just join your sales as long as they can sell your sales program." And he was like, "Yeah, man." He was like, "If you sell a ATM, then I'll give you the job." I was like, shit, okay. And you know, I kind of started regaining some faith in myself. I went back into hustler mode and I sold 2 CoinFlip ATMs, aka Bitcoin cryptocurrency ATMs, where you insert cash and then you get crypto. And a lot of people who like live in the cash economy use that and stuff like that. And so I went to the office, and him and Chris Dayrit, the CMO, were like, "Well, man, you know, I don't even think I really need to interview you because you sold 2 ATMs. So I think you got the job." And I was like, wow. I was like, I thought I was working for a really innovative company and but I was yet to accept that I had bipolar. I didn't think I went through anything. They told me I might have had bipolar. I didn't believe them. I wasn't taking any medication either. And so months go by while I'm at CoinFlip in my head on a super amazing mission to uplift the company and making cool relationships with all the other employees and trying to learn about finance through them and befriending the actual mechanics who worked on the ATMs and getting closer with Daniel and Chris and all of them. But as time went on, I started to act weird. And I was also abusing a lot of Adderall because I thought it helped me with sales, which is a whole other shit. But, and I was drinking like 6 Red Bulls a day, and I was like, Oh my God, fuck. So as time went on, and with anyone who has bipolar, please don't take Adderall, bro, or
That's
like,
what my boy took. I have like voicemails when he was in his
Really?
manic. So and I kept him because he ended up taking his life. So I got a tap for him, and it's definitely no joke. You know what I mean? So it's like I don't laugh at it, just more so at the stories because I've
Right.
been on the other end of a phone call where he's telling me like the clouds have lined up and Jesus is here right now and everything makes sense and he has to move to California and shit like that.
yeah, man.
Like it's crazy. But he was smashing a bunch of Adderall like every day. Like snort it, take it, like just take a bunch of Adderall.
I was doing that at coin flip, and I was naive enough to think that no one was noticing, but eventually, like, the girl who serves food was like you haven't been eating, and I'm like, what you mean I haven't been eating? I was like, you're bogus. I was like, why would you say that? And then the fucking one of my coworkers was like, dude, he's like lay off the Adderall, bro, and I was like, okay, so as these months went by, the mania starts to like escalate, and I start acting weirder and weirder and a little bit more off. Even though I had developed a lot of great relationships with my coworkers, like the salespeople would tell me, Matt, having you on our sales team brings us so much more joy during the day. Like we just feel happier to be here when you're here, and they meant it. But that doesn't dismiss the fact that I started acting really strange. And eventually I had, when it got really bad, one day I broke down and I had a temper tantrum. Like I was stomping on the ground. I started crying profusely and like talking about how nobody understands me and all type of crazy stuff. And so the next day when I came into the office, the CMO Chris I remember it was almost like a movie scene. I go to put up my jacket and he's standing across the room and there's a lot of people in the office. He says, Matt, come in here. And I say, you're not gonna let me take off my jacket? He doesn't say anything. He's just silent. And I stand there and I don't walk towards him. I just stand there in this very like intense 10 seconds of silence before I walk over to him. And then I go into the room and he sits me down. He's like, Matt, we have some really important bankers in here today and we can't afford to have you acting that way. So I'm going to ask you to, could you, and he didn't even fire me. What he said was, could you go home and take a break and we'll see how you feel from there. I said, thank you. That's exactly what I need. So somehow, some way that day I ended up losing my phone, my wallet. I don't know how I lost all this stuff, but the moment that I was dismissed from the office, as I walked home, I had none of my personal belongings on me, and I call it the Great Walk because I must have walked like 14 miles from the West Town where their office was at the time to where I live in North Park, and during that walk, I had all these crazy experiences that not only were real, but were also completely in my head. And so me reflecting on that day is still one of the most bizarre memories. Was this the second time you went crazy? Yeah, this was the second time. Hopefully last time.
Okay.
Hopefully last time.
So only 2 times you've had like crazy manic episodes.
Yeah. Only 2 times have I gone into these like psychotic episodes. And now I understand like how to regulate it using medication and how to monitor my, behavior and the signs to look for after accepting all this stuff. And that was his own process and very depressing. But as I walked home, bro, like all this weird stuff that happened. I remember, and it just all seemed to connect. Even and like this real, I remember this wasn't in my head, but I was just like acting nuts. I thought people were trying to shoot me and shit. That was definitely in my head, but I really felt like it was gonna happen. So I was like freaking out and like hitting random walls downtown and screaming. And at one point I tried to cross this bridge and there's some event going on or something, and the cops tell me like, bro, you can't cross the bridge. I'm like, they start asking a bunch of personal questions about me before they tell me that I can't cross it because there's an event there. And then I tell them, you could have just told me that in the first place. And then I walk away. And the moment that I walk away, there's this dude in a lion costume. This really happened. This actually happened. I know for sure because a lady took a video of it. This video's on the internet somewhere. I just have to find it one day. Literally a block away, I walk up to this dude in a lion costume and he's going, police, the police, the police. And I'm like, yeah, gang. And I'm in the this video's on the internet somewhere. I don't know where it is. I'm sure this exists. I know I couldn't have made that up. That was very real. There was other stuff that I didn't actually see with my own eyes, but I was assuming in my head, very certainly assuming in my head, but that stuff I know was made up. But this stuff I definitely saw with my own eyes. Anyway, I walked home and I thought a lot of people were trying to kill me and all type of bizarre stuff. And I thought I was Jesus Return and all type of crazy bullshit. And I thought since I was Jesus Return, that when I got home and it was the Trump versus Biden presidency on ABC, and I thought that the ABC news correspondents knew and had gotten word about how Jesus had come back and it was me, and that they were talking to me through the TV. At this point, there's no way that could have possibly been true, so that was definitely made up in my head. But I was hearing them like say stuff to me and referring to me as the future president. And then by the time I woke up in the morning, I threatened to fight my father, even though he was really, really concerned for genuine reasons. I was like, I'm going to beat your ass. And like, when you're this manic, like you're not in your right mind. So you have to understand that like, I would have never have said or done this kind of stuff in my right mind. But anyway, then that's the point when my parents called the cops on me. And when the cops got to the house and they found me, I look at them and I say, no. I say, can I please just sit on the couch for 72 hours and no one bothers me? And they say, no, at this point, we got to take you in, man. And I was like, please, come on, man. I'm not going to talk to anybody or do anything. I'm going to meditate on this couch for 72 hours. And they were like, nope, we got to bring you in. And I say, all right, well, can we at least do this cooperatively? And the female officers go like, oh, yeah, sure. And the male ones are like, So I get up and I literally walk the cops out of my house. I'm like, all right, guys, come on, follow me. And I walk out the door and I go outside and I'm like, where's the ambulance? They're like right over there. And I'm just like, dun, 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 dun. And get in the ambulance. We drive off to the hospital. And when they open the ambulance and let me out to go into Swedish Covenant, I start steering the wheelchair as if it's a car. I'm like, wee, and I think, I don't know if this was in my head or if this actually happened, but I'm pretty sure I did hear one of the officers say this. They're like scratching their head. They're like, this kid's kind of got a brilliant mind. And I was like, wee, going into the, but then, and the mental hospital is an interesting place filled with all type of nonsense. As you can imagine, because everybody in there is not in their right mind. And there's this one dude in there talking about how he's low-key like a Italian mobster who has like shipping crates of guns, and I believed him for whatever reason, because the other dudes in the mental hospital were also like vouching for him, and we're like, yeah, this guy's the real deal, man, and And I was like, whoa. So I was like, all right, boss man, and he liked that when I referred to him as boss man. So I would see him in the hallway. I would go, what's up, boss man? And he was like, and then like, I remember they brought me some food once to the room, and I ate this banana and I started flinging the banana at the window and saying, I'm the banana peel ninja, bitch. Hi-ya! And throwing, and they were like, man, this guy is something else. And I remember the nurses kept opening the door and looking at me, and I would mean mug them. One of them goes, he has a problem. And I say, and then I just burst out. I said, I love bad bitches, it's my fucking problem. And yeah, I like to fuck, I got a fucking problem. And I was just off the walls, man. It was some other shit. The mental hospital is like another kind of experience. I remember one time, because I still was in like, I'm some like divine king kind of thought process. Yeah. So I put the towel that they gave me and I made it into this big headdress. And I walked outside of the room and started walking around very confidently with my chest out. And one of the nurses looks at me and he says, oh, you look like a king. And I said, no. I'm just a regular man. And he goes, oh, just a regular guy, eh? And then it's just all these weird interactions.
So how long were you in the mental hospital?
Oh, a week or two. Yeah, it's generally I remember they put me on Xans. They injected me with I had so much energy that they literally injected me with anxiety juice like into my jugular, and I still wouldn't go to sleep. And like but then after a week of like heavily medicating me and all that stuff, I kind of like stabilized, and then I was like, man, because at some point it starts to feel like jail. Like after a week, you're like, damn, can I please get out of here? And you just keep asking the doctor who, you know, admits people out, like, please, can you test me again to see if I'm okay? Because I really want to leave. And then eventually, like, they dismiss you and you get out. And
Jesus Christ. That's nuts, dude.
It's nutty stories, right? I feel like anybody listening to this or watching this might think like one of my deep fears is that me being this like vulnerable and open about this kind of stuff will have people think that it could happen again and that I'm somebody they need to stay away from. But I'm pretty confident that, like, you could look at Kanye, for example. Here and there, he does some wacky stuff because I assume that he doesn't really feel like taking his meds because at some point it feels like oppressive on your own system, or people around you trying to constantly monitor you makes you feel like a patient, and that feels annoying. So you kind of want to break free from that. But generally, if you kind of consistently take your meds for people who have bipolar, Landon, our good friend of ours, Tristan and our good friend Landon, he's good friends with a guy named Andy Dunn, the founder of Bonobos, a menswear brand that's sold to Walmart for around $300 million. He has bipolar, and he wrote a whole book called Burn Rate.
Yeah, I got it.
You do?
Yeah, I'm supposed to get him on the podcast.
It's awesome. Yeah, it's really insightful. I was listening to the whole audio book that he reads himself, just nodding my head going, yes, yes, yes. It's so accurate. So if anyone wants to understand the experience of bipolar, or especially how it is trying to be an entrepreneur with it, Burn Rate is a fantastic book. But similarly to Andy, my second hospitalization only happened a year after my first one. His happened 16 years after his first one.
Yeah.
But for both of us, by the time we got out of the hospital the second time, we had to come to terms with what was going on, that it wasn't an anomaly, that it wasn't a one-off thing. We had to check ourselves and figure out what's really going on here. And for both of us, it was accepting that we had this condition and having to learn as much about it as we could. And since then, I've been pretty solid. It was really tough for a while to accept that as far as I'm concerned, until someone figures out something new, that people with bipolar have to take meds for the rest of their life.
I'm just worried about the long-term effects of the meds.
I am as well, but yeah, I am as well. I just can't. I've done everything in my power to try and find an alternative solution.
Yeah, I'd rather have my friend.
I hate big pharma. I hate big pharma.
Yeah, I agree.
Fuck big pharma.
I agree 1,000%. Rather have my friend back, you know, in regard to him just getting on meds and staying on his meds, you know. But at the same time, I do worry about the long-term effects. But I do see that the meds do at least stabilize. I think I'd rather keep the people here, and so you don't get too deep into your head and then want to leave this place. So you said you needed to leave at 6?
No, actually, I have a call at 6:30. But so, do you want to keep talking for a little bit, or what's up?
So I got to head out here soon.
Okay,
so,
cool. Yeah.
But I do want to plug you in. Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm not too hard on it. You know what I mean? Okay. So I'm flexible. But is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
I could mention Exit the Premises. So I'm a part of a hip hop collective in Chicago that I met when I was a teenager called Exit the Premises. They're from out south, out west, up north. We're from all over the city. And I met these guys when they were making music initially, and I was kind of involved in the very early stages of my businessy entrepreneurial career. And so I was like, guys, I'll be your manager, I'll be your brand manager, I'll be your like business support system. But then one day I was like, can I be in a music video, as a joke? And I still remember the very first verse I ever made that I made on this video. I said, rap so swift might get knocked out. Chief with the fire, call it a cookout. Your bar's so dry you could call it a drought. And I'm having some doubt that you down for the count. If you having some doubt, I'd like you to announce. Stuff so good, count it up by the ounce. Blah, 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 I'd ask you to pronounce. Some of y'all try to keep it low-key, switch up emotions with emojis. I would call that straight baloney. Super duper squad day one, homies. But I'm saying that with the little kid accent kind of, because that's how it was. So, but I brought that to school, and then people at school, my homies were like, hey, you low-key raw, bro, it's low-key decent. So then I started making music, and at first it was trash, like most art is when you first make it. Yeah. But it started to get good slowly but surely over time. And then, you know, these people, because we were so supportive of each other's creative careers, became some of my closest friends. So shout out ETP, you know, gang, that's the homies, that's the guys. So shout out to them.
Love it. That's Exit the Premises. This is Matt Smith. where can they find you? Where can they find your friends? Where can they find your businesses? What all do you want to plug in?
You can follow me on Instagram. That's my most active social media. It's at nonstop, nonstop.matt, M-A-T-T. At exit the premises, at play Light Pong on any social media. And my new podcast that I launched, The Intersection. If you look up The Intersection Pod on YouTube, youtube.com/intersectionpod, or The Intersection Pod on Instagram. Yeah.
And please shout out mental health. Please don't be afraid to get help, and don't feel in the process of you needing help, you're in the midst of getting help, or you got help and you're recovering and you're having a successful 2 years, 16 years, 40 years, and maybe you're struggling with thoughts or being accepted and you don't want people to know that you've had crazy stories like Matt. There's people out there that are good people. I'd like to consider myself one where it's like, I'm not going to judge you off of your past experiences, because despite me maybe not being bipolar, I don't think anybody's wrongdoing is worse or better than somebody else's, So I think, make sure you're one, surrounding yourself with the right people, but two, don't be ashamed to get help and build a circle that cares about you as a human being. So shout out to mental health. You know what I mean? Don't be afraid to reach out to somebody.
And shout out to the Adversity Kings podcast.
And shout out to cats and dogs and turkey. keep living it up. And shout out Beyond Wood. All right.
shout out Symmetry Wood. Shout out Beyond Wood, aka Beyond Wood.
All right. Peace out, guys.